Westborough Affordable Housing Trust meeting of Thursday, June 10, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at townwestborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Westborough TV's online platform, YouTube/Westborough TV and westboroughTV.org, or on Charter Cable 192 or Verizon Channel 28. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately address the proceedings in real time via technology means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's Westborough's website an audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So I assume, Alan, Aiden, that you had started the recording. So let me admit Jim and welcome Jim. You're on mute, Jim, I think.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning, all. Just since we have a couple of guests, I thought we'd just go around. I don't know who knows who. Well, obviously, hopefully the members of the board know each other. Jim, do you recognize everybody here? I know you know Alan, myself, Hank. We have Kate Storm and Leah McLean.
Thank you. Nice to see you or meet you there, Kate and Leah.
And the same Mark. Jim Robbins is our town planner, by the way, and Mark Silverberg is chair of our planning board. And he and Jim have graciously agreed to join us today, particularly to talk about some opportunities and impediments as we go forward with some of our initiatives.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. All right, minutes. We have minutes that Alan put out from our May 13th meeting. Has anybody not been able to review the minutes, or at least peruse them? Okay, I don't see Kate. You haven't had a chance.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. You can abstain if you want to, or okay. As usual, Alan does an outstanding job, so I think they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that's why I didn't read them, because I figured Alan has done it.
Yeah,
I did. I did. Ed, just so it's in the record, Ed did send 2 typographical errors where I had trustee with a D instead of trustees with an S, so those have been corrected.
Right. Any other amendments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the minutes of May 13th, 2021.
So moved.
Second. We'll do a roll call. Alan, if you could do the pleasure.
Sure. Hank.
Roush, yes.
Leah.
McLean, yes.
Kate.
Storm, abstain.
Bain.
Bain, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. Passes on a vote of 4-0-1, 5 being present.
Okay, perfect. I was going to bring up let's bring up the agenda quickly, if I can find it among all my windows here.
Just I can share it.
Yeah, why don't you share it if you have it right there, Alan? We'll go through very quickly. Okay, if you want to expand a little bit. Okay, good. All right, we already went through the role. Basically, the first, I thought it would be best if Jim and Mark let us off on our discussion. And I do want it to be a little bit back and forth. We'll then get a Sarah update from Alan and Kate, all the good work they're doing with that. Hank and Leah talk about some of the things that they're working on affordable housing opportunities, some projects, particularly the Rogers Road sprinklers and elevators, and hopefully everybody got Hank's notes from that. I sent them out in the past day or so. That might help or guide us during that discussion. I'll give a quick, very, very quick update on the Mass Housing Partnership Annual Housing Institute meetings. There's 3 webinars that they hold this month, and then we'll talk about some other business and possibly a guest speaker for next month. And one of the issues we do have is meeting locations, because we may no longer be able to do virtual meetings depending upon, per Governor Baker's decree. Although there is a Senate resolution that might change that, but we can talk about that then. All right. So,
excuse me, Ed, if I may.
Yes.
Knowing that Kate may need to leave early, I have an item for other business that it would be very beneficial if she was here for.
Okay.
So if we might do part of that, either maybe immediately after the Sarah update for a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, just remind me when we're at that point. So, Jim and Mark, a few weeks ago, I met with Jim and Mark, for about half hour, 40 minutes, and we talked about a variety of things, and I thought it best if they joined us, and particularly since they're so well versed in the town itself, zoning, properties, various issues surrounding development, et cetera, I thought it was best to invite them, to our meeting. So, Jim, I don't know if you have an opening statement, or Mark, you have an opening statement. Just throw out what you think would be good points for discussion and ideas.
Well, just to kind of kick this off.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way I see this is there's kind of 2 portions to the issue of affordable housing in Westborough. One is the local regulatory process, our zoning regulations, and the methods that we currently use to try and encourage and create affordable housing. And the second part is what's actually been done and what might be the opportunities going forward. So Mark, I think, is in a good position to talk about what's been done and the policy direction of the planning board as to what the opportunities might be going forward. I know that once before I came before you when you first formed to talk about the regulatory process, but I'm happy to do that again right now really quickly to kind of frame for those of you that weren't at that meeting, whenever it was many months ago, to talk about what Westborough has for options legally to create affordable housing. If that's okay, I'll proceed that way.
Sure, sounds good.
So as most of you know, the state has what they call a comprehensive permit program that creates affordable housing that basically is a proposal by a developer that waives all local requirements for zoning, which means that the planning board doesn't review the project. It's reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Planning Board comments, as does the Board of Selectmen and all other boards that would normally be involved in a development project, like the Board of Health, the Fire Department, Police Department, et cetera. That process has created numerous projects across town. As a matter of fact, prior to the transit-oriented village development zoning, most of all of our housing was created through 40B. Both Avalon projects, the one on Flanders Road called Avalon Mills, the one on Gleason Street right at the corner with Fisher Street, now known as Westborough Station. It also created Park Westborough out on Route 9. It created the housing on Beach Street. So I know most of you are familiar with those projects. So the lion's share of affordable housing, which requires a developer provide at least 20% of the total units to be affordable under the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD guidelines. Since that time, the Planning Board has created several devices that we use around town. One is the transit-oriented village zoning, which is 20% affordable housing also. Then we created the ability to do housing on Route 9 in the Highway Business District as long as there was access from a street other than Route 9 for the parcel. That hasn't created any housing. It would also require 20% affordable for apartments and 10% affordable for condos. We changed that to be 20 across the board. We've since changed our regulations now requiring 20% in all housing developments, whether it's multifamily apartments or condominiums or single-family residential developments. The Silver Hollow Estates project, for example, that's being built on Mount Pleasant Street is required to provide 20% affordable units. The little project that's being built at the corner of Fisher and Gleason Street, known as Village Commons, is providing 20% affordable units. Those are small projects. Village Commons, for example, is only 15 units, so you're getting 3 affordable units. Silver Hollow Estates is 26 units, so what are you getting there? You're getting 5 affordable units. So we're doing what we can regulatory. Right now, our affordable housing inventory is at 13.4%. When the new census data has been formalized and adopted at the state level, that will probably drop because, as you know, we had a large project out at Lake Chauncey, which is 700 units that was to be an affordable component, but the state does not accept affordable housing that's age restricted. And at the time when we approved that and we created the zoning for that, it was still eligible, but at the time it was built or going to be built, the state changed that. So they, as you know, make a large contribution now as mitigation to the Affordable Housing Trust. Is there any questions about where we are currently?
No.
So I'll turn it over then to Mark, what he sees are our opportunities going forward.
So I think Jim summarized where we are, and I don't know if you have questions about specific zoning in town that might be an opportunity, but I think Jim's point about the comprehensive permit under 40B is probably the best opportunity for the trust to actually put in significant number of units. Even though we have zoning that does allow for mixed use and zoning that would allow for residential use with special permits. Most of that is going to be somewhat limited without relief through 40B. The one impediment that we haven't discussed yet is the sewer moratorium. And I think you're all familiar with that. I am not an expert on that, and I think you probably need to maybe discuss that with the DPW or whoever can give you more information on that. So as far as specific opportunities, again, you have to have a willing participant in that. But obviously, I think before I get into that, one of the things you should be aware of is that as an MBTA community, the state has recently changed Chapter 40A to require us to put more multifamily zoning into town somewhere. It's supposed to be within a half a mile of the T station. There may be an opportunity to move that, hopefully downtown, but that would require 15 units per acre minimum, and that would be by right. So that would, again, potentially open up some affordable housing opportunities from, on a larger scale. And again, I don't know how large a scale you're envisioning, but I'm hoping that we can actually have a significant impact on affordable housing here in town. So as far as specific opportunities, I have one that just came up that I really hope you'll embrace and act on quickly. And if I can present, Ed, is that all right?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can
All right.
present on the screen.
All right. Let's start with a window.
Wait, Mark, is this West Street?
Yeah, it is. Alan, do you want to save that or?
Yeah, can we hold on?
No.
Can we hold on that for just a second? Because I have some questions about the changes to 40A.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we start there then? Go ahead, Alan. Yeah.
Okay, so as I've read the changes to 40A, it says that within a half mile of the boundary of the property on which our MBTA station resides,
Right.
we need an area of reasonable size that would allow for effectively zoning of 15 housing units per acre by right.
Minimum. Yeah, minimum. Yeah.
And that when I look at that when I go on the GIS and I look at, half mile surround,
Yeah.
when you look at north of the MBTA tracks, that part of the half mile radius,
Yeah.
we either have active commercial property or existing housing. Yeah.
Yeah, can I interject on that? So one of the things that DHCD has put out is that a town can apply for an advisory opinion that would allow us to locate that new zoning somewhere else in town. It doesn't, obviously DHCD would have to approve that, but once we come up with a conceptual zoning change that would allow the 15 units by right, I think we can build a case that we have an affordable transportation option from other places in town through the via rideshare that would allow affordable housing to flourish further downtown. I think that, DHCD, I think, understands that not every train station is in the town center, and ours is a prime example of that.
Right. But and I guess part of my concern with the way the legislation was written is that, that half mile was to assume walking distance to a T station, which assumes a live in the suburbs, work in the city, this hub and spoke mentality that the state can't seem to shake. And
Right.
That's not the way people are, that's so counter to the trends and the way people currently work and live. Right. I mean, there's a question as to whether, the current commuter rail system is even going to be necessary as opposed to more suburb to suburb transportation in the future.
Sure.
But that our goal would hopefully be that you want affordable housing in areas where people could walk to shopping and services.
Right, which is why we would certainly look to ask them to give us the ability to locate that downtown.
So
but I don't really think that we want more multifamily zoning.
Agreed. And so I guess the question is as the entity that proposes the zoning changes and the zoning bylaws, the planning board, has the planning board discussed, maybe pulling together some meetings of stakeholders to look at, that waiver or that advisory opinion and where we might want to locate that zoning?
Yeah, so Alan, what we're really waiting for is for DHCD to come out with some clarification of the new law, and they haven't done that yet. So, the law leaves a lot of ambiguity, and DHCD has promised some clarification of their positions so that, until we get that, it's really difficult for us to move forward with any concrete proposals or, even bring in stakeholders when we just don't know. So I think, again, Jim is more in touch with DHCD than I am, so he may have a better idea when that's coming, but until that comes, I just don't.
Yeah,
we're
just
kind of in a holding pattern.
A little more information on that, because Alan, obviously you're getting up to speed on this, and what the circumstances, but the rest of the committee may not. So DHCD decided a good way to create affordable housing with access to transportation was to require affordable housing be centered around MBTA stations, and all MBTA host communities, as well as their abutting communities, are going to be required to create districts for affordable housing. So, for example, Northborough has been named as one of the communities that's going to need to do this. We all know they don't have a station. So they have to find a district downtown where they can have affordable housing opportunities. Westborough has two approaches to this, and Mark is correct. DHCD has not promulgated their new regulations as to how we're supposed to go about this. But we have an easy fix, and then we have an opportunity. The easy fix is just simply amend our existing zoning, because we were way ahead of the curve. As a matter of fact, for those of you that don't know, Westborough won the first Smart Growth Award in the entire Commonwealth back in 2004 when we adopted this transit-oriented village. I actually have the citation on the wall in my office here. We received the award at DCU Center back in 2004 for creating the zoning. However, at that time, we intended to have a commercial component with it, and we haven't been able to create any commercial uses in the district, but we have created over 500 affordable units in that district. So for us, it's an easy lift to simply change our current zoning from 14 units per acre, which is what we allowed by special permit, to 15 units per acre by right through site plan review. If we simply do that, we would conform with what DHCD's regulations are. That's not our hope. As Mark mentioned earlier, what we would like to do is provide for the provisional waiver, apply for the provisional waiver to allow our multifamily district to be downtown. And so that we don't create housing so far from the commercial uses and the services that people seek. Right. And so we think that the master plan, which is just discussing this issue, is the route that we will take. And in the interim, we have to obviously abide by what DHCD wants, but we're going to reach out to DHCD as soon as the regulations are there and say, this is what we would like to do. We'd like to create this downtown. And obviously then we talked about the affordable, the sewer availability for multifamily housing being an impediment for that. But the zoning will work.
Now, if I can, with a town like Northborough, which obviously cannot do a half-mile perimeter, if you will, for access to public transit, unless they're also counting bus routes, and if there are bus routes there. Obviously, the DHCD has indicated that they are open to having 40A be placed beyond that perimeter.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the presumption, but again, there's still a lot of clarity that needs to come out of DHCD as to what their expectations are.
Okay, Alan?
And I would point out that, as Jim said, the easy fix of upgrade, just modifying the existing overlay district from 14 by special permit to 15 per acre by right wouldn't necessarily trigger any new density, higher density housing development because of the current lack of available land in that area. And in the land that would, because we already have residential developments, the most likely land would be at some future point a conversion of commercial or industrial property to residential or mixed use, which, while could serve housing needs, would again structurally alter the the ratio of commercial contribution to the property tax levy, which is an important thing to keep in consideration.
Yeah, Alan, I think we're on the same. Page on that, though. I'm not sure that the simple fix is really not always the best fix.
But I just wanted to say that so it's on the record, so people watch this know that if there's a simple fix, why aren't we doing it? Because sometimes the simple fix isn't the best fix, and it's worth the effort to find the best solution for the community.
100%
Yes,
agree.
and that's consistent with the master plan, Alan. The master plan is recommending that we do affordable housing in mixed uses in the downtown.
Okay, great.
And there's a lot of benefits to that, both from a tax base from the commercial side, as well as the ability to access downtown services, walking distance services, and all the other amenities that are downtown, from churches, schools, library, etc. So shopping.
One of the things no matter where this district is, there's not a lot of available vacant land for development. There's redevelopment opportunities. And I think as we look at specific opportunities downtown that I'm hoping that Trust will focus on or at least explore, you'll see that all of them are redevelopment. They're not, there's not open space available for development, at least not on a large scale, maybe on, small lots.
I guess one of the things would be, unless you were able to combine lots to get,
Sure.
adjacent lots that would give you a footprint where, you could do a 15 to 20 unit kind of development, maybe 3-story.
But Ed, even combination of lots would, almost every lot would have a building on it of some kind.
You would have to do a tear down, and it would only be if there are some places that have, if you will, modest priced homes or older homes or.
So my feeling on that is, from a planning standpoint, the Trust has a significant opportunity to contribute to, and incentivize that redevelopment of some of the underutilized parcels downtown, and get rid of some of the, I don't know what the word is. Non-historic architecture. Yeah, and redevelop that with architecture that would be consistent with Westborough's, downtown feel and village feel that people are trying to promote. So, again, money talks, and
You have several buildings in your inventory right now in the downtown that would be perfect to be retrofit. The building at the corner of West Main Street and Milk Street, above the Cork and the wine store. That would be a great building. It's vacant right now above the first floor. Also, in the Gateway District, you have the former Reliant Medical Building. That's vacant. That would be a great reuse, retrofitted building. All those buildings, or both of those buildings, are sound architecturally. They would need to be refit in the middle. Of course, the building above the package store would have to be updated for all its utilities. It needs new electric and probably new plumbing. But that's a beautiful building, and that would be a perfect place for residential development.
Now, in order to do something like that, where you have an existing owner of the building or that building block, would your vision be for the Trust to buy the building and then lease out the commercial bottom floor and rent out apartments? Or how might that work financially?
Yeah, I don't think the Trust should be in the business of managing these units at all.
No, we would not want. Let me just intercept.
Go ahead.
We've had this discussion, and I think I speak for the board that for the Trust, that we envision our, if you will, ability is to develop, rehab, convert, what have you, buildings, but then turn over the management to Westborough Housing Authority, and we can talk about that when Hank gets in.
If it's rental, yes. So for something like the building down on the Rotary, we'd be more apt to be the role, to assist with financing and to provide subsidy, right?
Right. So that's the point I was going to make, Alan, is that the best way to incentivize these is to find a developer that, and make it affordable, make it financially feasible for them to do something like this. And
you got to find a partner for us to do this kind of stuff. I mean, to try and do. I mean, if you try and do residential construction under the federal and state mandated laws, you're going to increase the cost by 50 to 100%.
Right.
Yeah, I think the only,
It's just not financially feasible for entities, municipal entities to do that stuff. You're much better. And oh, by the way, we really don't have the skills and ability, the management abilities, et cetera. So
yeah.
we really need to we need to find partners to partner with in proposing and developing.
Yeah, and I think the only place where you might have an opportunity is on the vacant land next to that the housing authority owns. You know, if the housing authority were to
Stay tuned for the later agenda items.
Yep, we're talking with the housing authority on
Sure.
possibly doing something with Rogers Road.
Okay, so,
I
but
do
as
have a
far
question
as,
about
yeah, go ahead, Hank.
when the master plan envisions affordable housing in the downtown area, is there a definition of what downtown means?
Good question. So yes, as a matter of fact, the part of the suggestions that have been made is that we redefine what downtown is currently. If you look at our current zoning map, it's a red circle in the middle of the zoning map, and parcels that are not residential are all zoned commercial. Some are zoned general industrial. But I think that one of the things we're going to want to look at very seriously, and this will be the planning board's charge at the recommendation of the advisory committee, is to consider either modifying the shape of that district or changing the zoning in that district. And I know Mark has some actually great thoughts about that. We were talking about this yesterday in the context of another project. So I think Mark should share his thoughts on that.
Well, you know, I have a lot of thoughts, so you'll have to specify which one intrigued you. But you know, I would like to. And I came here with the idea of focusing on some larger opportunities downtown, where you know, I thought we were going to focus on, you know, who the trust could approach to possibly be a partner. And, you know, I've identified a few parcels that I think would be exciting opportunities for redevelopment and large enough that might support a significant number of units. So I can explore those. But, you know, as far as zoning downtown, you know, I think putting the multifamily zoning that 40A requires downtown is, you know, the most desirable spot for that. You know, again, I'm not really sure what Jim's referencing, because we had a conversation.
Mark, I mean, if you have in mind, you know, some group of some possible partners and or parcels,
yeah,
that'll allow us to go look at, you know, start a process of assessing feasibility and identifying identifying what the barriers are to success on the property, and that you know, if we go through that sort of what I call a first order analysis, we'll understand, we'll be able to identify feasible things worth spending time and money on.
Yeah, so the big, you know, again, 40B through the comprehensive permit process, you know, that eliminates a lot of the barriers from a regulatory process. Right. The biggest barrier is the sewer issues, but, you know, I'll present my screen if you're okay with that. I'll show you what
I've invested. I mean, for the trustees, I've investigated the sewer issues. I've talked with the town engineer. We're somewhere between 18 and 24 months away from having a closure on that. There's not much that the trust can do to make that happen faster. Yeah. I mean, I believe the town meeting voted money to pay for the engineering studies.
Yeah, $200,000.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, that article.
That's kind of the core piece of work that needs to be done before we can make any progress. So, but it's going to take us 2 years to get anywhere anyway. So let's assume that problem gets solved. Quite honestly, if that problem doesn't get solved, then this is all an academic conversation.
Yeah. So I've identified. Sorry, Hank. So I've identified 4 potential partners for the town. Whether these landowners are interested in, you know, greater development, I would leave it up to you to explore that. But you know, there are some significant opportunities to combine parcels and redevelop And, if you want, I can share that.
I would suggest that that Mark send that to us.
Yes, I think that's the best.
And that we potentially at our next meeting schedule an executive session.
Okay, sounds good.
So that I don't want us talking about addresses and individuals in public.
No, makes a lot of sense
at this point, and creating any rumor, triggering any rumors or expectations or fears or whatever, because at this point it's way too premature.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I have a question, and this is probably for all of you. I know that the trust is in a process of identifying vacant parcels, identifying vacant buildings, or identifying buildings that could be used for affordable housing, and also identifying potential partners to help finance those redevelopment. Is it the intention of the trust to put together a document that identifies those parcels, buildings, and partners?
I'll start but I'll go around with anybody that may want to do it in it. Yes, I think whether we do an official document or we maintain lists, that some of it may be private because of what Alan, raised about how much do you want to publicize your interest, particularly in more in locations than in partners. But I think developing some of that, maybe touching base or, given an orientation to what we're looking to do in Westborough with potential partners, their levels of interest, yes, that would be something that we would want to do. As far as properties, yes, we want to keep a list. Hank and Leah have been looking at a couple of options in particular. They've sort of been spearheading that initiative. So the answer is yes. I wouldn't say it's a document per se, but at least a list and or a compendium of what our resources might be and opportunities might be.
The other thing that and I'll be talking about this as we talk about future meetings, we're looking at bringing in technical consulting from Mass Housing Partnership to help us establish a process by which we would have a standard process for identifying, evaluating, and prioritizing potential projects.
Right.
So that, some checklist, some decision process that's in line with the priorities that, we expressed when we were established as a trust, as well as the guiding principles that we operate under.
I mean, I'd like to see here's sort of if you will, a little bit of a roadmap as you just hear about something, and then you have various go, no go points along that as you investigate further those opportunities.
So that actually segues to the reason I asked the question, Ed. So, for example, that I get calls daily from developers about property and say, we're looking at this piece of property, what are my options? And so if that list is available at some point, whenever, and prioritized, I mean, if you had a list of 10 critical items and this particular property checks 8 of all those boxes, when I get a call about that, I'm going to try and direct them towards affordable housing.
Absolutely.
That's why I ask that, because to share that information, say, with the planning department, the Department of Public Works, those departments that get the first hit from a developer.
So just from a conceptual standpoint, without mentioning
yes, please do that,
properties, right? So from a conceptual standpoint, the planning board is looking to create a downtown feel on East Main Street from the Rotary to the railroad bridge, right? Whether it be through redevelopment with a mixed use storefront set on the sidewalk and parking in the rear, residential uses above. And it can, under current zoning, that can go up to 4 stories. So that could also extend down Milk Street. It could extend down South Street. We already have that to some extent on West Main. So we're trying to recreate that, and rather than the mishmash of buildings that we have now that really don't coincide with some of the historic feel that we see on West Main in particular. So, from a priority standpoint, I would hope that we could recognize that area as maybe the area to focus on, rather than, the Reliant building is a great opportunity, but it's further out. And I'd rather see some efforts focused on, within walking distance of the Rotary.
Mark, has the planning department or the planning board, do you have any insight into the level of community support for 4-story buildings, 15 units per acre kind of numbers? I mean, that's sort of height and density in that area.
Well, the overlay passed pretty handily at town meeting. Where we described that. Yeah.
I mean, the overlay wasn't specific about, we're going to put 4-story. I mean, I'm just concerned that the community, it's a great idea, but when you go in there and say, I want to build a 4-story building, and it's not going to have a facade that looks like the 1790s. It's going to have a facade that looks like the 2020s, right?
So I actually disagree with that, Hank, because we had a new building go in at 25 West Main. Right. It does go quite well with the historic facade of West Main Street. In fact, you probably don't even know that it's a new building. So, it's definitely feasible to recreate that storefront mixed use. The design review board will ensure, all of that is subject to design review. So they'll ensure that it coincides with that feel. So I think that I think we've seen on social media a pretty large backlash against more gas stations and drive-thrus. So I don't think that's what we're trying to encourage. We're trying to encourage that urban feel like we have on West Main. I don't want to say urban feel, but village feel.
Yes.
And I think the way to do that is through redevelopment of existing parcels. We're not going to take a building and renovate it and have it look or feel or generate enough units. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're looking at tear down and rebuild.
Yeah, I think 25 West Main is a perfect example of an older building that was by no means very historic looking. It was a 2-story, pretty much commercial professional, and then that was turned into a 3 or 4-story with apartments or condos above with commercial, like real estate, offices, et cetera, on the bottom floor. And that looks nice. I mean, it's a brick front. A lot of areas in Westborough, they used brick in period development, et cetera. So, but keep going, Mark. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think that that's conceptually what the planning board would like to encourage in downtown, and I think we have the zoning in place for that already. The biggest impediment has been A, the sewer, and B, finding a willing developer and a willing, and a parcel that you would actually do that on. So, my hope is that the trust can incentivize somebody to actually take the steps and construct something like that, through subsidies and through low interest loans and whatever mechanisms you have to encourage that.
Mark, if I'm correct, there's one piece of property in that area you've described that is town owned, which is the Forbes building.
The community center. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should take all of that offline because of the point Alan made earlier. Maybe do that in executive session because there's tremendous opportunities in and around the Forbes Center and other opportunities in in that area that, I'd like to explore with you, but.
That'd be great. Again, that was just so obvious. Yeah, good, fantastic. I'd love to see the list and start looking at what the potential might be.
Right.
Yeah,
So I have an action item, just so I'm just watching time here, and we are sort of right on sort of schedule, but we do need to move on to other topics. Mark, if you could put together sort of, I don't want to say your vision, but it sounds like maybe a little bit of a vision of at least opportunities that you think might be appropriate that would provide the sizing that we would need in order to make it worthwhile to do development. We don't want to do just a 2 or 3 family kind of development. We want something of substance, because we have to remember, although we're, as Jim mentioned, 13.4% affordable, in our SHI, as Pulte builds out the old hospital, the state hospital, there's no affordable there. So that number's going to decline over the next number of years. And, we'll probably stay right a little bit above 10%, I think, if that was the only development being done. So,
we certainly need to be sensitive of the SHI,
right.
But I also like some of the concepts Alan's put out about the need for gap housing in town, and I'm hoping that the trust will. And again, I know there's regulations on the trust, and CPA, if it comes forward, has a little easier regulations as far as the income limits and so on. So I'm hoping there'll be some opportunities in this endeavor to create some gap housing as well, because I think there's a need for that in this town.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. So if you could forward that, to me, I'll get it out, and then we can decide how we want to discuss it at future meetings, possibly invite you back. We do appreciate your valuable time with that. And with that, do you have any closing remarks, Jim?
No, just that when you get to the point where you have a priority property or 2 or 3, let me know, because we do get calls daily on those types of developments. And please pay attention to the master plan. It's in its last phase right now. We're putting together the implementation plan. That when I say implementation plan, that means ranking priorities. There'll be a draft which will be circulated to town departments. I assume that there'll be also circulation to the Affordable Housing Trust for comments. And then probably a month after that, we'll formalize the document. The planning board will get a presentation by the consultant, and I invite the entire Housing Trust to come to that. The selectmen will be invited to that, and other boards as well, so that there can be one large meeting where people have an opportunity to comment, and then we'll take it to town meeting. And hopefully the goals of the Housing Trust will be accommodated in the plan, and we'll get support from all the voters, and we can move forward.
Okay, great.
All right. As the Trust's representative now to the Housing Subcommittee, our goals and objectives are very well reflected and very well informed by the housing section, and not just housing but land use and other sections of the master plan. It's an impressive. Yeah,
we don't see any conflict.
So can I just add one thing? And I mentioned the CPA Exploratory Committee earlier. The Exploratory Committee is having 2 sessions for the town boards and committees on. I think Ed, did you get an invite on that you can circulate? You should have gotten an invite.
I didn't get an invite, but Leah's on that. On the CPA committee, so
Sheila Goretz, I can forward it to you, Ed, as well. Everybody on the trust is invited to attend one or both of those to get some more information on CPA and to give the exploratory committee feedback on, and direction. Okay.
Yep, I'll get that out to everybody, and maybe we can chat about a little bit more on it at our next meeting. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. You're welcome to stay with us if you want. I know
I may stay a little bit longer just to.
You have so few other conflicts and other meetings to go to. I know you lived for this, Jim.
Ed, if I may, I can do the Sarah program update very quickly.
Yes, if you can.
And then we can go to other business.
Yes.
I know Mark and I want to talk about the same issue there.
Okay, go ahead.
And I can raise that. So as of Thursday of last week, Metro West Community Collaborative has received 13 total applications. 10 are fully complete and have been approved. 2 were incomplete, and Makesha was working with those families to get their applications complete. She expects they will be, and they'll be approved, which would bring the total number of families receiving assistance up to 12. 1 family has withdrawn. Their circumstances changed, and they withdrew their application. There are an additional 5 households that have been active contact with MWCD about the program. One is definitely expected to apply, and she's working on the preliminary application with 2 other families that don't have computer access. So she's asking them the questions over the phone and typing it in for them, and working with translation services to make all that happen. So that would likely bring the total number of families receiving assistance to 15 or 16 as we continue to move forward. To date, of the applications that have been approved, 1 is a studio, 2 are 1-bedroom, 6 are 2-bedroom, and 1 is a 3-bedroom. So when we look at the average grant on a monthly basis, we're below what we projected it would be on an average across the program. So financially, we're in good shape. The COVID-19 Relief Community Fund has not yet decided how much to allocate over to us. I'll be communicating with their leadership by the end of the week to discuss that as they're having their next meeting next week. And we'll be making a decision there. They should be, any donations that were specifically towards emergency rental assistance, I expect would come over as those are directed donations. But they've raised some other funds as well. And so the potential is there, for the $10,000 to $15,000 range, which we would match. And so I'll as soon as I have more information, I'll send an informational update to the board, and we'll know where we're at. At this point, we're well below, the money that we've allocated for the program as far as need. And we're definitely having an impact on local families in our communities, which is good to see. And so I'm feeling that the program is very successful. There were some initial hurdles that we had to overcome. Those were quickly resolved and addressed, and things have been moving forward very smoothly. And based on the size of the program, MWCD has been able to make the payments and sort of front them so that they aren't making as many requests for checks.
Right.
But we do expect one this week that will go to Ed, get signed off on, and be processed by the finance team. And Leah and her team have been extremely helpful in facilitating the process, and that's very much appreciated. So that's the update. If there are any questions?
Okay, outstanding. Now, there was something else you wanted.
Okay. So Mark will want to chime in on this, and I know he's ready to present, and I'm ready to present. Mark,
so Alan, this is your committee, so why don't you take the lead on this, and I can just add comments as necessary. I mean, I'm excited about an opportunity in town, but I'm not on the trust, and I don't know how excited you'll be about it. So, I think it's. I'd be happy to take the lead, but I feel like I should defer to you.
Okay, so a property has come to market that in the past there was some interest by the school committee in the school department in acquiring, but at the last time it was on the market, no action was taken due to budget and other circumstances. The property, I'll actually pull up the GIS map so that you can see where it is. The property is at the corner of Fisher and West Street. As it's coming up, I'll zoom in a bit and center it. Okay, oop, a little too far. There we go. So you can see that this is, the real estate listing has it as a single family with an in-law apartment. It's a little hard to see through the GIS tag.
Alan, yep. It's actually listed in MLS as both a multifamily and a single family. Okay. So I think legal occupancy is still up in the air. It's taxed as a two-family, though.
The property card has it as a two-family. Right. Under the residential zoning. And so it's a little hard to see through the GIS. I've highlighted the building. This square on the lower left side is the quote-unquote in-law apartment. It's a 2 or 3 room unit that is a kitchen, a bedroom, and a sort of a seating area. I believe it's 24 by 24, so not too small. The remainder of the house is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, I believe, home. The interest from the school department, and I did hear, I know Mark had reached out to myself, Kristen, Vincent, and Amber. The word I heard from Amber is that there is some interest here in if the school could obtain some of the property at the back of the lot, either for additional parking or to allow for a change in the roadway configuration for the Armstrong School to provide more space for pickup and drop off and for, bus routing and traffic flow through the Gibbons and Armstrong complex. And so, the thought would be that that this is a property that could be acquired by the trust, divided with a portion, with the trust then selling a portion of the land to the school department, at which point they would go do their thing on it, and then the trust would either decide if these would be rental or easier at this point, given our youth as an organization, to sell as affordable. Using the general guidelines from, DHCD and where the property is valued and sort of the 40% rule for affordability. I think that the in-law apartment could easily and very affordably be reconfigured to make it handicap accessible. And so that could be a 1-bedroom handicap accessible unit. And the house goes affordable. Given, I won't talk specific numbers because open session, everything, but, sort of given the asking price, given approximately what these units might sell for is affordable, and, some potential recovery of funds from the school department for portions of the land, if we could, get the approval from the planning board to divide the property and allocate the property that way, there would be some subsidy involved from the housing trust to make the difference there.
Alan, what's the ask on the property?
The published ask is $536.
I thought it was $539. I was looking at it yesterday.
Okay,
It's in that neighborhood.
It's in that neighborhood.
And it's 0.9 acres, so almost a full acre.
Yeah.
Right.
So what would it take to get an option on the property? How much money would we have to spend to get an option?
Don't know. First off, there are a couple of questions we'd have to come up and reach out to the selling broker, such as it's unclear from the pictures online if there's an interior connection between the in-law apartment and the main house.
Yeah, again, my guess is it's not gonna last long on the market, right?
No, I talked,
I would
Go
be
ahead, Hank.
surprised if the trust has enough money to buy it outright today. I don't think we have the budget headroom to do that with the budget we have, right? So if we could hold it off the market until we can acquire more funds, or do the next level of due diligence is pretty easy. But my sense is you got to find a way to get an option on it.
Yeah,
I did, if I can chime in, yesterday after Alan gave me the address, I went in and I was looking at, I forget whether it was Zillow and I think it was an MLS listing just to get the details on the property that, from a real estate perspective. You have to do an initial sign up, and sure, right away I get a call from not the listing broker, but another broker. And obviously the thing was, well, this isn't going to last on the market very long. You got to hurry up and give me a quote and things. I explained to her we're an affordable housing trust, et cetera, et cetera.
One, we wouldn't work with a buyer's broker. We work directly with the listing broker,
right?
With the seller,
right? But I'm just saying, I'm supporting Hank's point of, I think this will move fast given the housing market, given it does look like it's a nice location. The house was built in, I forget, it's not new. It's an older home, but it looks nice.
If I'm correct, either Kate and/or Leah are both in the real estate business.
No.
Kate and Leah, are you on board?
I'm a realtor now, yeah. I'm a realtor now, yeah. I'm licensed.
Would it be appropriate for us to ask our trustee, who's a realtor, to talk with the seller's broker and understand what our options would be? Express our interest and understand what it would take to hold the property long enough for us to do what we need to do?
Well, I don't know if Leah even wants to do that, but certainly somebody from the trust should. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8 Fisher Street is the address.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm quite willing to assist with, visiting the property, looking at it, all of that sort of stuff, but I'm not the right guy to talk to a realtor. I don't do well talking to realtors.
Okay.
And I guess the other pieces that would need to come together would be one, to let the school department know that we're at least willing to do some due diligence to see if we can make something work, knowing the current market conditions and how fast things might move, and to see if and discuss their source of funds. We would need some initial feedback from the planning department and the planning board as to acceptability to make this lot, which is technically, I guess, at under an acre non-conforming, would become less conforming.
So it's not the planning board. It'd be the CBA, but it's municipal purpose. So the likelihood of you being able to divide this for a municipal purpose is high.
Okay.
My sense, Jim, is we also could go 40B, right? Friendly 40B.
Yeah, you could. That's interesting. You could.
Okay, so but just get some sense of support from the planning board, because even if we went to the ZBA, friendly 40B as well, that it's got multiple board and town support, and then I think the third component, looking at available funding in the trust and given commitments we have with respect to our current programs, we would need to discuss with the COVID-19 Community Fund about their level of contribution in the match, as those would be, first funds out those would become the first funds out the door with the SARA program. And given the scope of the program and the current need and anticipated need, the funds we expect we wouldn't utilize, plus funds that we would need from the school department, we could have the funds in place to do this as a cash purchase.
Right. I think with the balance that we have, we would have significant resources, albeit we would need to get, because of the charter provisions that were adopted.
We need concurrence.
We need to get the Board of Selectmen involved because of the commitment of the level that we would have to probably make.
Right.
Level of funds.
Right. And so, the next scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting is the 22nd. But if timing required, even though I've promised up, down, and sideways that we would avoid additional Board of Selectmen meetings at all costs, I think something of this nature, they'd be willing to, we'd be able to get a quorum.
Okay.
Because I don't
need to pop off. Is there something that you all need from me before I pop off?
I don't think so. Thank you, Kate. Thank you also. I'll give a shout out to that Westborough Connects email you sent out yesterday. It was very, very well done. I know it's separate from our activity here, but you're a busy young lady there, and we appreciate it. So
well,
have a good presentation.
I can't stay on for this, but I'm very excited about this possibility. Just a heads up, I wanted to buy this house 7 years ago. It's super cute, and so I would love it as an affordable housing property, because I think it would just, going back to Mark's point about the planning board, wanting to have, historic preservation downtown, and my interest in affordable housing is to make the affordable housing accessible to all that need it, but also to make it beautiful and worthy of just making it so that people really want to live in it. And so I think that this property on Fisher Street is just absolutely adorable, and I think probably needs some work, but could be a really great first opportunity for us. So with that, I have to go do a wicked big presentation. So
yeah, good luck on your presentation.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you, Kate. One point I have here, it's a question for Alan. So the regulations or charter setting up this committee, does it allow this committee to spend money without town meeting action?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
it does, Jim.
That's great.
So, but because this would use more than, it's a single transaction that would use more than 50% of our current assets.
Right.
It would also commit more than 80% of our total assets at this point. It would require a concurrence vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Yeah, my guess, again, I'm not an attorney, but my guess is the concurrence vote would be needed before we could execute a PNS. We can go through the conversations and negotiations, but we could not execute a PNS without that concurrence vote.
I believe so. So we would look.
And my guess is we're a bit away from executing a PNS. I mean, I think, to me, I'd like to suggest a motion that we ask Leah McDonald to contact the listing broker and express our interest and understand how we might move forward with evaluating with the listing broker the feasibility of us making an offer. And at the same time, would ask, I assume, Alan, you're the right person to talk to the school department?
I'm happy to follow up with Superintendent Bach.
That'd be great. Let's follow up with Superintendent Bach and just, confirm that we're interested and we're moving forward and get an understanding of how they would like to participate.
All right. If I can expand upon Hank's motion, I move that Leah McLean reach out to the listing broker with our possible interest and what we need to do a little bit more review and investigation, et cetera. By all means, you can use the fact that we are the Affordable Housing Trust. just so that they're, aware. We don't need to hide anything there. And then secondly, the motion would be for Alan to approach the superintendent of schools to once again update her on our interest in pursuing this and just any general discussion that they may have towards looking at this property, towards considering this property. Okay. So that's a motion.
I second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Comments? Okay.
Just a comment that after this point, if we're going to move forward, we may need to meet to approve any negotiations related to price and timing, et cetera, and that those would need to be discussed in executive session first and then brought forward to a public session. So just a heads up, we might need to meet before our scheduled July meeting or our intended July meeting.
Yeah, Alan, if we meet in executive session, do we need to post that, or can we meet in executive session without posting it?
We need to post a public meeting where the only agenda item is to enter into executive session.
So Ed, you may want to go ahead and post that. Well, pick a date next week or something and post it.
Yeah, I can help Ed and get that coordinated.
Yeah, we can do it just on. I can do it a week from today, probably. I think.
Let's see. Let's hear back from Leah. Let's give us 24 hours to hear back from Leah and Superintendent Bott, and great. Then we can decide how quickly we need to meet and what would need to be involved. I will also give the town manager a heads up that we may need resources from town council.
Right. Ken, I have another question. In an executive session, can we have, I'll use the word guest speakers or guests, like if Amber, for example, we wanted to invite Amber. So if there were issues or questions, non-trustees could join. Okay, good.
Correct, yes.
All right. All right, good.
Okay, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, yes, if you can do that, Alan.
Mr. Bain.
Bain, yes.
Mr. Roush.
Roush, yes.
Ms. McLean.
McLean, yes.
And Mr. Edinburgh, yes. So passes 4-0-0 for being present.
Okay, thank you, Lee, and thank you, Alan, for stepping up for that. All right, moving along, we're at 10:15. Hank, you've been meeting with the had a meeting with the Housing Authority, Westborough Housing Authority, in particular discussions on work to be done or possibly to be done with the current Rogers Road facility, and a very, I guess, open discussion about other developments. So you did send out, did anybody not get the email I sent out where Hank had his meeting points listed? It was a conference call. So it sounds like everybody has that. So Hank, you want to just hit on a key things?
Yeah, we've had two meetings so far, and the second meeting we discussed two issues. The first issue is the possibilities that the Housing Authority may be ready to add elevators to the existing, I think it's a 30-unit building, basically a single-family apartments. And they are interested. What drives their interest is that they're serving a fairly elderly clientele, and many of their clients can't handle the stairs, so they have an overwhelming need for units that are accessible on the first floor, and they have a hard time getting people to move enough. We inquired as to, got an understanding that they really haven't done very much in the way of understanding. They have not contacted the building department. They haven't contacted the fire department. They haven't investigated in any way, shape, or form what other kinds of renovations might make sense for the building if you go in and do. I'm concerned, without a great deal of knowledge, that the building was built in the 1980s. more than likely it needs more than, when you go in to do an elevator, you're also going to need to do you should also go do other renovations. Likely you probably have to bring the building to the latest codes.
Okay, so if I may, because I've had ongoing conversations with Linda Strand about sprinklers and elevators. There have been, we're not definitively sure, but there have been discussions that the building at 2 Rogers Road, which is 31 bedroom individual apartments plus an area that is houses 6 individuals in a congregate living situation, so separate bedrooms plus a common living room kitchen area, that the capital improvements made on that building to date have hit the state threshold that would mandate the addition of sprinklers before any other capital improvement projects were made. If we're not at that, we're pretty close. My conversations historically with the Housing Authority and with the director have been around how, and this even predates our trust, how the Housing Authority might obtain funds. Senator Jamie Eldridge has expressed interest in obtaining an earmark for all or most of the cost of both of those projects. Fire sprinklers obviously is a code, a capital improvement enabling issue, and a life safety issue, and the elevator as an ADA compliance and again, a safety issue for the residents. Not only for the residents, but certainly, if there's a medical situation with a resident on the 2nd floor, an elevator capable of holding a stretcher is much safer both for the patient and for the fire EMS personnel than carrying someone down a narrow flight of stairs, and that stairway is fairly narrow. So Linda Strand and I had a call with Senator Eldridge's community relations director and counsel about the process of looking at state funding for those projects. She is in the process of obtaining budgetary estimates for both projects and identifying what additional work would be necessary to support those 2 projects. That, as well as sources of potential supplemental funding, need to be identified. We've been asked that by early to mid-July, she provide a memo back to Senator Eldridge's office to that effect. And he will look at sources of funds. At this point, if it was a traditional earmark, it would be the fiscal 23 budget. So the work wouldn't begin until July 1st of 2022. However, there is in the current recovery bill that was passed, there is money specifically designed for affordable housing. It's unclear whether those funds will be controlled by the Senate and the House of Representatives and the Senate, or if it'll be controlled by the governor's office. So in either case, that memo could provide a justification for allocation of some or all of the funds needed out of that source of funding. And that's really, Senator Eldridge's office will take the lead on that, with the hope that, us as a trust and, if possible, the planning board and the, department heads and the town and the Board of Selectmen, providing letters of support directly, whether it's to the governor's office or to our full legislative delegation, asking for their assistance in obtaining those funds. And so there's a fair amount of work happening right now with respect to elevators and the sprinklers first, elevator second, for 2 Rogers Road.
Did Linda mention any of that to you, Hank?
I asked specifically whether they had engaged an architect engineer to help them with assessing what would need to be done, and get kind of the preliminary estimates. And Leah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. She didn't seem to. They had not engaged anybody of that sort. There was some conversation that they had talked to an elevator company about getting a bid on an elevator, but I don't understand how you get reliable estimates without some engineering work.
Right. Well, there are companies that specifically do enough engineering work to do the estimates for these types of projects. My conversation with Linda was last Friday, so it came after Hank and Leah's. And at this point, she is actively working on what she needs to do to get budgetary numbers.
Great, Alan. That's, I mean, we encouraged her to do that. We said if they kind of made the offer that if they needed funding, they could come and ask us, and we would certainly give them consideration and to help fund getting estimates and engineering and enough work done. But I also suggested that they really ought to talk to the building department and the fire chief and make sure they understood what the scope would be required for that work. Yes. Putting an elevator on that building is non-trivial.
So, and they've been looking, in the past, they've looked at a full elevator. They've also looked at a lift. There are different levels of, sophistication and capability of lifts. So they've looked at the level of lift that's one step below an elevator. So it would be large enough for a stretcher or, for one or two residents who might be in a wheelchair plus one or two people with them or groceries, but not a fully enclosed, cement block, cemented, elevator shaft type of situation about what's possible. I know they've looked at a space in the lobby adjacent to the stairway and the landing. There's a location. There's also been some discussion of a small addition to the building on the opposite side of the staircase and the landing that would be new exterior construction on the back side of the building that could house it. Again, she's pursuing options to get some rough budgetary numbers so we can, so the funding efforts can start and happen in parallel to any additional work needed to move the project forward.
Right. If I can chime in, I think it's best, just from an efficiency standpoint, if we primarily focus any discussions we have directly with Linda. She's the director, and I think she's, can be decisive. She's an executive, and while they eventually will need to get their full board involved, just for efficiency, as I mentioned, I think working directly with Linda is the most efficient, is appropriate.
And part of what Senator Eldridge's office asked is if the elevator, under our ability to preserve affordable housing, the addition of an elevator would not qualify as an available use of our funds under Mass General Law. Sprinklers, because the lack of sprinklers could result in units becoming unavailable to the market or unusable, right? That is something that we might be able to assist with. And so the question from Senator Eldridge's office, and this would not be for a discussion and vote today, we would need it on a separate agenda item at a future meeting, would be, would the trust be willing to consider potentially offering some financing or matching grant funds for certain aspects of the project? So, might we be willing to consider financing or matching grant funds for the engineering and permitting work? And things of that nature. Not, at this point, don't even need a specific amount of what we'd be willing to do, just an indication that we support the project to the level that we would consider doing such things, as a way of demonstrating community support. In fact, they don't want us to give a number because he wants to ask for the 100% of the project to be earmarked, right? So that would be for a future agenda on those two projects, and that's all I've got. So,
okay, sounds like the things are in work, are underway. Obviously, excuse me, Linda knows how to get a hold of Alan and Hank and Leah. So we'll leave it at that. And as you get information, you can always send out emails. Once again, when we have to be careful not to do any deliberations, but as far as updates, status, call logs, things like that, that's very appropriate in order to keep the trustees informed of the status as we move along. Okay. moving along. We're pretty much on time. The only,
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Ed,
go.
I'm sorry. I need to leave the meeting now because
Sure.
I have another meeting, but I really appreciate the time. Thank you for having me. It was
Oh.
nice meeting the people that I didn't know before, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
yes,
Thanks,
and
Jim.
thank you so much,
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
Bye. The only thing I had, well, there's a couple of things.
Well, just with respect to the other, Hank's memo from Lee and Hank's conversations with the Housing Authority, is a side conversation in my call on Friday with Linda. Linda is suggesting that she work with Lee and Hank directly.
Yes.
To specifically to develop one, two, or three different concepts for the use of that property, and sort of come up with a project, project definitions and scopes, and then go to her board when that's done with those options and a recommendation of which option to pursue.
Right.
Rather than having their board members involved in all of the legwork that she feels it'll be a more effective use of our time.
Yeah. Now, this is for the development of an additional or new housing
Correct.
facility at some of their property down Rogers Road there.
Okay.
That footprint, right.
And Mass Housing Partnership has technical consulting resources
Right.
that we could bring in at this point in time to even help us with the process of, okay, you've got a piece of land.
Right.
How do you get from there to a defined project that you can vote on?
Okay. All right. That's a good segue. Because one of the next item was, and I can skip over the Housing Institute meeting since I've only had one. I'll give an update next time. Is whether we want to invite Shelley Gehring or someone else, or in addition to her, to our next meeting to discuss a process, if we believe that would be helpful, just so that we all hear what are some best practices if you're going from the ground up and or other areas. I'm throwing that out for discussions, just similar to, what we had with Mark and Jim today, like a 45-minute or so segment. Thoughts?
Ed, I believe we could use some help with, kind of planning where we're going from here.
Yep.
I mean, I keep thinking the next opportunity to acquire additional funds is this fall.
Yep.
I don't feel we're prepared to intelligently go to our town meeting and ask for more funds, but I kind of understand that we're pretty rapidly going to deplete what we have. So we need to figure out a way.
If we take action on Fisher Street, definitely.
We need to strengthen our planning and visioning process so that we're more prepared. We're looking out more than a month at a time.
Right. All right. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to reach out to Shelley. She's been on the MHP, the Mass Housing Partnership, Housing Institute that I've been attending, or I attended one. I have another one this afternoon. I will reach out to her, sort of give her the lay of the land and ask her if she would be available at our next meeting in July, particularly given, and I'll give her the context of where we are as a sort of younger group, but that we already have some projects or potential projects lined up, and we'd like some of their input.
Yeah, she's aware of where we are, and she's she provided guidance to the working group along the way, and is very, very familiar. I actually participated in a panel last week with the Housing Institute about outreach.
It was an amazing, it almost brought me to tears when Alan spoke.
Don't even joke. Anyway, I think I did okay and represented us well.
You did well on how we use convergence.
Co-urbanize.
Yeah. Co-urbanize.
And you know, as soon as that panel ended, she like texted me and said, "Call." I called. She said, "You guys need, you know, technical help in getting up and running, setting." And so they know, having worked with so many housing trusts, they understand exactly where we are and what our next steps need to be. So I think it would be good to, you know, have them come in and, you know, facilitate.
Will do. What else did I have here? Okay, I think that covers everything. Just other business. One of the things, Alan, I think you may have mentioned at the beginning, and I've been getting notifications as well. As we get out of our, June 15th coming up, we're no longer under a, what do we call it, from the state?
Emergency orders.
Emergency orders. And one of the things we may need to do is start to meet in person. Now, there is a Senate resolution that's been put out. I got a notice from the Metro West Partnership that the Senate has legislation, it's Senate 2467, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures. And there are 2 points in that, 2 bullet points. One was to allow public body to have remote participation by all members in any meeting of the public body without a physical quorum of the body present at the specified meeting. So I think that's to extend.
It basically extends the rules we're operating under now to September 1st.
Right, to March 1st. Right, it extends it beyond September to March 1st, 2022.
The governor's extension only runs to September 1st.
Correct. So we should.
I received a note from town manager that, in the opinion of town council, these measures, where they are in the legislative process, are at this point appear unlikely to pass before the June 15th cutoff. When the end of, so that we should be prepared to hold meetings after June 15th in person.
Right, I agree. The other point,
obviously, if they get extended, we have more flexibility again. But you know,
yeah, no, we should plan on it. The other point I was going to bring up was that another portion of that bill would be to extend until April 1st, 2022, eviction protections that require courts to grant a continuation if the eviction is based solely on non-payment. The non-payment was due, and the non-payment was due to COVID-19 related financial hardships, and the defendant has a pending application for rental assistance. So to the extent that it might affect our SARA programs, that may come back. So anyhow, meeting locations, I think it would be great just to get together as a group. We've yet to do that since the committee was formed, since the trust was formed. I like, probably Thursday mornings, we would keep the same time, but venues, the Memorial Hall would probably be available, but that is a little bit more formal. I would like to keep this a little less formal, than everybody sitting up at the dais there. There is a meeting room in Town Hall. There's a small conference room on that first floor in the back. I don't know how much that's available for other people.
So, Ed, can you just reach out to Sheila?
I'll reach out to Sheila and ask.
She'll let you know which locations are available at which times. If we want, what Westborough TV is working on continuing to cover as many committees and boards as possible, and would like to continue to cover us, is what I've heard from Karen Henderson. So it might be Memorial Hall or even the Great Hall, just because those are pre-configured for Westborough, make it easy for Westborough TV. But if you could follow, it's probably best if you just follow up on that and let us know.
Okay, I will take that on with Sheila and get her out a note with our meeting dates and things like that, and that we're looking, so that we can have it at minimum 5, but we would sometimes like to have guests. So at least to have the ability to have 10 people comfortably there, I think would be prudent. All right. Any other business or discussion? New business. All right. Well, it looks like we're keeping ourselves busy, which is good, and we're right on time. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. You want to roll call, Alan?
Sure, I'll do the roll call. Hank?
Roush, yes.
Leah?
McLean, yes.
Ed?
Bain, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. So thank you, Westborough TV.
TV, yes. Thank you, Al.
A vote of 400, we are adjourned.
And thank you, Mark.
Thank you guys for the invitation.
Thank you, Mark, for
really
coming.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Take care.